You say, very cheap lah. I was thinking, wow, she said cheap. Me, I think it's quite expensive.
Seriously? Oh my goodness.
But I was like, you know what? It's best I just keep quiet. I'm going to smile and I'm going to enjoy the drive.
Yeah, I didn't know because I thought that you also agreed with me that it was reasonable. But anyhow, okay.
I diplomatically agreed at that moment lah.
There's this myth, right? People always say, oh, okay, if you love each other so much, or sometimes people look at it from like from an outside point of view, they're so compatible, their personalities are so similar, then they'll work well together as well. There's this myth, you love each other, you will work well together. Do you agree with that?
To be very honest, I agree and I disagree to it. Okay? The part that I agree on is that there is an element that, when you're very compatible as a husband and wife, there are things that you are alike. You are alike, which helps, it is the catalyst to get something started. Yeah? For example, say the podcast. We're alike, we see things, we say, hey, this is a good way to get things started and all. The part where I disagreed was working styles and how things are being done. That, I think, will differ. You see, there's some people, I give you an example would be, right? Let's just say an example, maybe, I'll use the podcast as an example, right? Say maybe for an example, for us to prepare for an episode, example.
Oh, well, a number of arguments you had there.
So you would have a different way of how you would do it. I would have a different way how I would do it.
Correct.
But what makes it interesting is that we actually land at the same end goal.
Yeah, so I guess like the process is different, but the safe to say that the goal is aligned, right? And I guess that's what makes it work.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's important, I guess, when you're running a business together. You can be doing things very differently, but as long as you're working towards the same thing. But oftentimes, I feel like where maybe it's difficult for husband and wife to work together is when maybe what they're working towards is also quite different. So I get what you mean.
So you see, now on this part of it, how have you felt work and personal space?
Ooh, this is a golden question. This is my opportunity to see everything in a nice way. Yeah. I mean, okay, so all jokes aside, I think, so if I'm hearing you right, how has it been, the fact that we work together, how has it affected us from a personal, in our personal lives as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, not gonna lie, we are like so much better now, and I think we'll come to that later about some of the boundaries we set in place and all of that. But I'm not gonna lie, the first year of us running the business together and everything, oh my God, it was really hard. And we also chose to do it before we got married.
Yeah.
The year that we were planning our wedding, like, oh my goodness, you realize then like, okay, this is the person that I want to do life with, and it's amazing. But then when you add another layer of running a business together, you start realizing that, oh my God, we think about money very differently. We think about structure. How do we structure our day is also quite different.
Yes.
Our leadership styles, management styles. So 100% that was different. And because it was different, how it affected personal life, we started talking about it so much. Because we were so passionate, which was great. But as a result, we started, I think we talked about this as well. Sometimes we forget, are we husband and wife? Are we business partners?
Absolutely.
Until sometimes I even have to ask you, hey, you're talking to your wife here, not your business partner. Even yesterday, was it yesterday or day before?
It was yesterday.
I asked you for some business-related advice, and you got very passionate, and you were like, you got to do this right now. If I were you, I'll do this. And I felt very like, oh my God, calm down, it's too much, I just wanted like an opinion. But then you took a step back, and I remember you saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I have to remember sometimes that I'm talking to my wife.
Yeah.
So 100%, I feel like how it chips into our personal life, in terms of time. Sometimes we used to have like no boundaries, and I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Even some days, even now, sometimes we just lose track. We end up
Yeah.
talking about it at home. How is it like for you?
To be honest, I agree with what you're saying, because sometimes we're just so passionate about it. You are constantly just thinking, it's in your mind. And a good example would be like yesterday when you were asking me business advice. And I think I just got so excited. And I'm just, so excited. Okay, we've got to do this. And then after I actually said it, then I was like, hey, wait, just a second. She's my wife. We're not business partners. I mean, we do business together, but it starts back with she's actually my wife. And then I felt a bit bad after that, and I was like, okay, no, I need to dial it down a little bit. I need to dial it down. And I think the other part of it was when you were talking about, because you run a business, then you're husband and wife. Sometimes you come back home without realizing. You must always, sometimes that switch off is not there.
Oh, yes.
So when you actually don't switch off, what happens is you picture it as if your house is your office. And sometimes you think, okay, this comes to my mind, okay, I need to tell it to you. Or this happened in the office, or this happened at work. You need to know about this. It's like as if, like say colleagues in an office, something happens, you'll tell your colleague, hey, the client said this and everything. But
Sometimes you just kind of want to get it off.
Yes.
Right? You don't even intend to get any advice or anything.
Exactly. But I realized over time, it's not very good. Why? Because when you continuously, you see, you come back, you just talk about work and everything. What will take the hit? It'll be the marriage.
Yeah.
Because if you really think, put aside business, work, and everything, your core at the start is actually your marriage, right? I think that that's the core and the start of it, and this is why I realized after that, like I deciphered, and I'm still trying to work on this to not talk too much about work continuously.
Still a work in progress.
Yeah, still, yeah. I definitely think it's a work in progress, and but I learned and realized, okay, look, you can actually have some boundaries a little bit. When is it to talk about work, and then once you're home, unwind and talk about other things.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't need to, because it's not a do or die thing. If you don't, for example, you don't talk about it today, you talk about it tomorrow. If it's a work.
It's
not
literally a matter of like boundaries,
Yeah.
right? But just circling, going back a little bit to what you mentioned earlier, you talked a little bit about how because we are business partners, we do business together. Our office is also in the same space, so we tend to sometimes forget about home and versus are we at home or are we in the office. But I also realize how it affects like your marriage is also from a perspective of like, I mean, I don't know if this is a male thing. Like once I clarified it with you and you told me like it's a male thing. So sometimes like I also had to tell you very clearly like, okay, working together is not quality time. Because in the beginning you used to think like we spend the whole time together, we're going to work together, have lunch together in the office, discuss together about work, spending time. So I want to go out with my friends at night. And then here I am, why is my wife like a bit like, I'm not that I'm upset that you go out with your friends, but more like keep on telling you that, hey, my relationship tank is pretty empty. Like that's how I indicate to you, right? And then only I think we also understood, and I think that's when I sat you down and then you really understood like, oh my God, like so spending time together at work is not quality time, and it actually isn't, to be honest. Like sometimes it actually takes away much more from the tank. So for example, if you're already starting at a 50%, going into the office, like yesterday we went into the office and we were working the whole day, I came back home with like maybe 20 rather than it being filled up. Because I think, I don't know whether it's a male thing or a female thing, like for me personally, work is like very separate. Like we are constantly in our masculine energy when we work. Like we think about like the to-do lists, tasks, assignments, completing things, Where else, like when you are in your relationship, for you to feel fulfilled, like as a woman, I think it's a lot of to do with like being in your feminine energy. which was then we realized, okay, if we are going to do this, then maybe over the weekend is where we put a pause into work and everything. But you are spot on. Like those are the little things that you don't realize that comes into work. But you mentioned earlier about boundaries. What are some of the, I mean, I can think of a few, but I want to hear from you first. Like, what are some of the boundaries that you have put in place to fix this issue that we had in the past because we work together?
I think, I think before I jump in that, you talked about the tank, right?
Oh, okay.
About the tank and work. So it's funny. For me, that's what you should acting in your masculinity energy, right? So I guess maybe from a male perspective, you act in your masculine. So like for me, going to work and doing my work lets me be in you are in your masculine energy.
Yeah. So meaning that,
so it is. So I'm actually. It's weird. It sounds. I'm filling up my tank. But what I am learning to realize is you hit the nail on this. For you, when you're going to work, you are in your masculine energy because and everything. So your other parts of your tank gets depleted.
Yeah.
You see? So where I am actually now, with what I've learned in place is this. I've actually kind of like categorized it in different things. To be very honest, when I look at work, it's I'm in the office and I'm out of the house. But when I'm home, I treat it and I meant it that this is home. And this is where we spend time together. This, we chill out, we do stuff.
So it's like a mental thing.
It's a mental thing. That is also the reason, a joke aside, is when I see something at home, you're on a computer, I get really stressed. I'm like, what are you doing? Working.
I just thought that's just you being competitive, that, oh my God, my wife is working, I doesn't need to work. So I don't know which is true, but anyway.
So I think these were some of the things that I put in place. Another thing I've also learned to realize, it's actually a hard truth that I would share and say, is that I think when you're happy at home, when your marriage gets strong, when it gets stronger, actually everything else will fall in place. So why I'm saying this is that sometimes people use work for the wrong reasons. I'm having trouble in other parts. I'm just going to triple down on my work and make that be a coping mechanism. And so I kind of realized that, it's actually it's a thing that when you set these boundaries, when you focus, when you're happy at home, you're doing stuff, you're recharging, you go to work also, you will realize it's actually falling in place.
Yeah.
It's laying out as how you would want it to be. Would I have reached the point to say that, look, I have very clear boundaries between work and home? No. I'll be lying if I said yes. But definitely getting there.
Yeah, and I think, just to like add a little bit on that, I think we also talked a little bit about how we don't want to measure, like we can't measure it by the day. So what I mean by that is that, like, I think in the beginning, one of the things that we used to do is that, okay, because we work together or we are seeing each other a lot for a while and everything, we used to think that, okay, at night, let's watch a movie together, or let's have dinner together, or let's cook a meal together. It's just not possible. You're so tired at the end of the day. You just literally want to just make something quick. There's no time to like be sitting and bonding over a meal. Like, you're so exhausted from the day. But I think one of the boundaries that we place is also, I wouldn't say boundary, maybe it's like a little rule that we live by. We don't really look at our day. We look at it more like a week. So maybe even if we have to work Monday to Friday, like yesterday, today, it's just constant. We kind of know that we don't really have much time for each other. Yeah. We do the daily check-ins, but I feel like really sitting down and like really talking and like really spending time and like asking about each other's day from like a very conscious space. You need energy for that. You can't be giving somebody like, your half energy, like, in other words. So we have tried to, correct me if I'm wrong, it's something that we're trying to do a little bit more, is to look at it by the weeks. So that means we know, like, okay, Monday to Friday, like, we tell each other, this is our plan for the whole week. So I also adjust my expectations. And then we realize that at the end of the week, okay, we have like, half a day together or something. So that's one. Another boundary I realized is also, this has helped a lot. Like, initially when we did it, I was a little bit like, oh my God, like, does this mean anything else? Is when we just drive to work separately. Yeah, I really, although we're going to the same destination, I honestly think personally for me, it has been such a game changer in our relationship. And I say this because I think, number one, it gives us time to honor our own individuality, because you love to talk on the phone when you're driving. Like, you call like 5 people on your
Yeah.
on your car ride. Whereas for me, is like literally I make max 1 call, which is to my mom. And sometimes my sister, but time zone difference, she's not in the country. But most of the time, I listen to music, or sometimes it's just pure silence. So then I realized, like, we used to have this misunderstanding. Hey, can you please, can we just ride in silence or whatever? Then I realized it's not fair as well, because that's your personality. So that has helped. And second is that it gives us that time to kind of like dislodge from like work, that drive back. It sets that, in a way, like what you said, like that mental thing that, hey, I'm going home now.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer in like my work mode thing, So those were like some of the boundaries I can think of.
Just an interesting thing that you talked about this. I guess it maybe could tie back to the introvert and extrovert that we were, we spoke about a couple of weeks back. I think for me, it has got to be that I think when I drive to work, it's my way of framing myself, okay, I'm ready for today. It programs my mind that I'm okay. I've got a set of things I need to do. This is what I need to. And I know it's a funny joke. I know, I mean, not even you say this. A lot of my friends say this. They say, when I call them, hey, yeah, why, bro? You're stuck in the jam, is it? Driving to work,
Oh
But sometimes
my
I just
God.
feel that, look, I want to make my time, I want to use up my time the best way. So I better make all these calls so that once I'm in the office, I'm just full focus on my my work itself. But I do agree that it's good that we drive certain times separately to work. But to be honest, it's actually also nice driving to work together. I think
sometimes we still
there's
try
some
and do
days
that
you just
lah,
wanna, it's kind of fun. And I think
Yeah.
maybe on those days, like maybe like on Friday,
Yeah.
we're gonna work, and then evening 4 o'clock come lah. Let's go and have
Yeah.
some tea somewhere. Or let's go and have some early dinner.
Coffee.
It's
Like,
quite fun
today,
lah.
technically
Yeah,
today we drove
technically
together.
today we drove together.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree. Let's go to the deep stuff.
Let's do it.
The deep stuff now.
Yeah.
How do you think disagreements at work affect intimacy at home?
How do you think?
Disagreements at work affect intimacy at home.
Wow,
Definitely
I think
does.
it definitely does. It definitely does, because at work, when you have a disagreement, whatever could it be, sometimes you actually don't process it and mend with it, you bring it back home. And this is the part where I was trying to, which I talked in the earlier parts, where you sometimes need to remember, hey, it's your wife.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, but that's the funny thing, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have disagreements. You have disagreements about work.
Yeah.
But what I realize is oftentimes it's not really about the work, is it? So, like, for example, what I mean by that is, an example, like now like sometimes I notice that, okay, we have a misunderstanding about maybe, like, I think the biggest one that we have is like basically how like, you are more of a risk taker,
Yeah.
whereas I'm a bit more like careful. So, like, for me, it's
Yeah.
all about like, okay, when it's all about the number, profit, loss,
Yeah.
margins, that kind of thing, right? Whereas, like, I noticed, like, for you, like, which is also important, not discounting that at all. Also, knowing that you need to spend as well. Like, in a business, you need to like invest and need to spend. Sometimes it's not, when you leave, right? When you leave the workspace after having that kind of an intense misunderstanding, when you come home, it's not so much anymore about work. It's a lot more about, oh my God, like, my partner doesn't share the same values as me. Oh my God, we look at money so differently. And those things definitely affect intimacy at home. So that's when I started realizing that it's not really about the work. Or sometimes I notice that, okay, maybe your leadership style is very different.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, my leadership style is very different. It's not often about how it is at work, I personally, that's my own personal reflection. Like, it's a lot more when you come back home and you bring it into the marriage, you start realizing that it's a lot more like, oh my God, like, is this going to be a problem? Like, my husband doesn't view it the same way as I do.
Yeah.
What does this mean? He allows this kind of behavior, or he doesn't allow this kind of behavior. I don't know whether it's those things, you have those thoughts. I think that's when we really needed to, like, then have much deeper conversations and about why we behave a certain way and everything. So I think that is the heartbeat, I feel like. Where else, like when you work for a company or when you're with your colleagues, when you have a misunderstanding with them, you come home, you tell your partner, then you move on. You don't bring it.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, this is the part, right? I think it's an element of, the male mind thinking. We operate in boxes. There's an element of
okay.
where we operate in boxes. So, to a certain extent, I look at it this way. Even at work, say for example, maybe it could be on, a certain topic, we have. But I look at it, okay, we've had this problem, misunderstanding, whatever it is, but I look at it as a box. So I don't mash those boxes up together.
Right, okay.
So, like an example, you said, hey, you're thinking, hey, maybe go, hey, how? He doesn't think like I do, lah. He's not thinking the way I do and everything. But I look at it in the context that, look, yeah, we might, we differ in the way we think and the way we approach stuff, but it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then I just close that box and move to the next.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that's just like a ability of a male to like do
Yeah.
that, right? But we talked about earlier, just one quick one, before we end our episode today, we talked about like financial boundaries in relationships. And of course, when you work together, you run a business together, finance is the biggest thing here, right? So, I mean, like for me, I would love to hear what's yours, but like for me, the financial boundary I feel that really saved our relationship is the fact that we kind of have like 3 different pools of the way that we look at finances.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because I think there's a my money and then there's a your money and then there's a us money, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why we also wanted the my money and then your money is because you like to spend on things that I may not be able to understand.
Yeah.
Example, cars.
Yeah.
I cannot understand how men spend so much of money on their cars, right? So
Trust
yeah,
me,
Yudish
you want
gets
to look
very
at
upset.
change your car tires, you want to get the good tires,
Yeah.
you think,
I don't know. Any other girl out there, any women, if your partner spends a lot of his money in on cars and you cannot understand, please just send me a DM. At least I'll feel very, very validated with that. Because but then I've come to understand that it's okay. Similarly for us, for me, when I go to the mall and come back, you always wonder like, oh my God, like what did you buy? Sometimes it's like a small box to put my earrings. And you're so curious, like, we cannot put in any normal box, but for girls, I mean, like, I'm not saying all girls, but majority, sometimes we look at it as like, okay, no, I want to get it,
I'm not going to lie, earlier you told me, about the saloon and you told me about the price of it.
Okay.
In my mind, I was saying, wow. You said, hey, very cheap, lah. I was thinking, wow, she said cheap. Me, I think it's quite expensive.
Seriously? Oh my goodness.
But I was like, you know what? It's best I just keep quiet. I'm going to smile and I'm going to enjoy the drive.
Yeah, you didn't say anything, then now I know about it. Oh, wow, really? I didn't know because I thought that you also agreed with me that it was reasonable. But anyhow, okay.
I diplomatically agreed at that moment, lah.
Okay, fine. We'll talk about this later.
But I can't compare. You know why? Because I don't have hair. So I think it's not right for me to compare.
Okay, I didn't expect you to say that. But you see, because I have my money, you have your money, then we have a us money where we invest together, where we build together, where we want to do things together. But I think it's also important to have that. And I think that was important because we run the business together. It's also important to have your own individual funds so that you can do your own thing. Like we make fun about it, but I've learned to respect that your car is important to you, even if it's not to me, and I think that's important. Yes.
Let's jump into our lightning turns.
Okay. So what is one rule we had to create when it came to work conversations?
Boundaries.
100%. No phone after, no talking about work after 8 o'clock. Okay, clearly because we haven't set the time, it didn't work yet, but we will update you guys. But yeah, we're trying that.
One mistake we wouldn't repeat.
Oh my God, one mistake we wouldn't repeat regarding this. Thinking that spending time at work equals spending time in the marriage. One thing that made us stronger as a team.
Being able to ride the entrepreneurship roller coaster together.
Riding it up and down together.
Up and down. One belief about partnership we had to unlearn.
Oh, this is a big one. biggest one for me, you don't have to be exactly the same in order to make something work. Honestly, I would like to think that we're very compatible in our relationship, marriage wise, but when it came to running a business, I noticed that we have so much of differences.
Yeah.
But as long as your final goal is aligned, you can make it work and you respect one another. So that was the big thing I had to unlearn. It doesn't mean that you're very compatible in your relationship means you're going to be the best business partners. I had to learn it the hard way. But I wouldn't do it with anybody else, for sure.
Thank you. I think likewise to me too.
Yeah.
I love the privilege of, being married to you and at the same time being able to do really, really fun stuff with you.
Yeah, I'm
And
still
I
trying to
think it
convince you
is-
about skydiving.
Well, let's see if that happens, but
Yes.
we'll
Yes.
see if that happens.
This seems to be like a really interesting topic. We can talk more about this, but of course we have our upcoming episodes and seasons in the future. But on this topic alone, if you run a business with your spouse, we would love to hear your thoughts. And we also want to know what other topics, that you think we should discuss on our podcast.
Absolutely. So here's to the turning points that shaped us.
When you leave the workspace after having that kind of an intense misunderstanding, when you come home, it's not so much anymore about work. It's a lot more about, oh my God, like my partner doesn't share the same values as me.
The male mind thinking, we operate in boxes. We've had this problem, misunderstand whatever it is, but I look at it as a box. So I don't mash those boxes up together. We differ in the way we think and the way we approach stuff, but it's fine.